This lesson is on section 1-10, Algebra, Equations, and Functions. So this brings us to our first example. So it says complete a function table for y equals 5 times x. Notice how I'm reading that y equals 5 times x. Even though there's no multiplication sign, we can assume there's a multiplication sign in there. And then state the domain and range. Now, function tables help us organize our input numbers, output numbers, and function rules. My input values in this function table are my x values, and my output values will be my y values. So let's go through this example. And this example is already done for us, so we're going to kind of see how this works and then actually solve one on our own later in this video. So my first step says choose four values for x. All right, so the four values that was chosen was 0, 1, 2, and 3. So notice you can choose any values you'd like. I always try to recommend you choose small numbers so that they'll be easy to multiply later on. So my values that I'm choosing for my input values are 0, 1, 2, and 3. Then my next step is to substitute the values for x into the expression. Okay, so my expression, and I'm getting this straight from this equation here, is my expression is 5 times x. All right, so all I'm doing is taking the 0 and substituting it in for x. So I'm just writing 5 times 0 instead of saying 5 times x. Here I'm saying 1 times 5, 2 times 5, or 5 times 2, and then 5 times 3. Notice I'm just substituting my x values, my input values, into my equation. Now my next step is to then evaluate and find the y values. So as you know, the term evaluate means to actually solve. So all I'm doing is saying 5 times 0 equals 0. So again, I'm just taking this and I'm just solving. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 times 3 is 15. Then it says to state the domain and the range. And this is pretty easy. Now, the domain is my set of x values, and my range is my set of y values. So I'm going to erase this to make this a little bit more clean. So when finding domain, I'm just going to put D for domain and R for range. My domain is just my set of x values. So I'm going to be writing my domain set in like a bracket form, just putting two brackets. And notice all I'm doing is copying it right here. I'm just copying all my x values as 0, 1, 2, 3, just like it's stated in this example. And then the range is just my set of y values. So 0, 5, 10, and 15. Notice it's just written exactly the same right there. So that brings us into our next function table where we actually have to solve this table. So now it's written out for us. We just have to write in the equation and solve for our domain and the range. So the first equation we're given is y equals x plus 4. So I'm just going to write this as carefully as I can right into the spot in blue. Okay, you just have to write that in and set up your table with your x values. Again, it can be any numbers you'd like, but let's use 0, 1, 2, and 3 is pretty small values for us to use. Now what we have to do is substitute our x values into our equation. So I'm just going to say, instead of saying x plus 4, I'm going to say 0 plus 4, and that's going to equal 0 plus 4 is 4. That's going to be my first y value. Now I'm going to substitute 1 in for x, so I'm going to say 1 plus 4, and that's going to be 5. And 2 plus 4, and that's going to be 6. And 3 plus 4, and that's going to be 7. So now I just have to state the domain and the range. So I'm going to say my domain, you can do D for short, and I'm going to put a bracket, is just my set of x values. So my domain is 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then my range is just my set of y values. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. So what the domain and range is saying is, so my domain is my input value. So whenever I put in 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3 into my equation y equals x plus 4, I'm going to receive my range values of 4, 5, 6, and 7. My next example is I have the equation y equals 10 times x. So I'm going to put 10x into my table. And notice the x values I'm giving you here are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, you can pick any 4 numbers you would like. So what I'm going to do is substitute my x values into my equation. So I'm going to write 10 times 1 equals 10. 10 times 2 equals 20. 10 times 3 equals 30. And 10 times 4 equals 40. Pretty simple here. So then all I have to do is state my domain values. Again, my domain are just my x values. You can think of D comes before R in the alphabet, and X comes before Y in the alphabet, so my domain matches up with my X values. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then my range is just my set of Y values, which is right here. 10, 20, 30, 40. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching.